So hello, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this Soccer Hub Talks. My name is Ricardo Almeida. I'm the CEO and founder of Soccer Hub. Soccer Hub is an online education platform for soccer coaches, soccer scouts, soccer analysts. Well, just visit us and take a look of the kind of offer that we have what regards to content. So as you know, this Soccer Hub Talks, it's live, so you will be able to ask questions to our speaker today. You just have to write on the chat box the question that you want to ask, and then I will select some to direct them to our speaker. Also, I would like to ask you to write on the chat box if everything is okay with the audio and the video. Please also introduce the country where are you based in, so we can adapt a bit our conversation to your specific needs. And also, what kind of job do you have? If you are a scout, an analyst, a video analyst, a coach, well, please write it on the chat box so we can have a bit more information about yourselves. So we are here today with Oliver Gage. Oliver Gage is currently the head of performance and player recruitment for the Canadian Premier League. Previously, Oliver worked with the Houston Dynamo in MLS, winning the US Open Cup Championship in 2018, as well as appearing in the 2017 Western Conference Championship final. He is also the founder of the project CoachTech. You will talk about it a bit ahead. But for now, I would like to introduce Oliver in our conversation. Okay, here it is. Hello, Oliver. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us.
No problem. Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be talking to you tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are.
Okay, Oliver, I have here some questions that I prepared to you, some simple questions, of course. First, could you please talk a bit more about yourself and how did you become a soccer analyst, please, Oliver?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my story to get where I am today is a lot different or very different to many analysts in the world of soccer. I didn't know what I really wanted to do with my life at 21 years old, and I was at university in England. So I decided to come out to America and take a scholarship to be a player. So I came out and I did 2 years in America. I loved it, and I moved back home to England, and I had an old friend of mine who was working for Middlesbrough in the English Championship as a video analyst. And this was about 10 years ago now. So this was when Prozone were very new, and maybe a little bit of Sports Code, but there was very little. I think Opta were a brand new company at this time. Y-Scout and Instat and companies like that were very new. And it was very early on in the stages of, or in the industry that is now video analysis and analysis in football. So I met with him, talked about his job, and I really liked the idea of it. And he helped me get an internship at Sheffield Wednesday in the English Championship. And I spent a lot of my time making very simple videos of players out on loan and helping with some set piece work for the team and a little bit of match analysis. And from there, I decided I wanted to use the skills I'd learned and use my experience to come back out to America and try and be a full-time analyst in America. So I moved out with no job, and I took a 6-month coaching contract to teach. I did an under-9s team, regular coach, and I spent 6 months trying to find a role. Very luckily, there was a really good role going at the University of Virginia, which wasn't too far from where I was living. Which I luckily got the job. And from there, we had a lot of success. We did some good work. We won a national championship at the college level. And then I decided it was maybe time to try and see if there was any jobs available in Major League Soccer. So I sent my resume to every club in the league, and I was very fortunate. I had 3 different offers from 3 teams, and I decided to eventually take the job at Houston Dynamo as a match analyst and a regular performance analyst. And after about 18 months at Houston, about a year actually, we changed coaches. And by this point I'd been doing a lot of work in data analysis and looking at benchmarking player performances and things like that. So I decided to approach the club and talk about moving into a more kind of technical recruitment role and long-term club strategy type role, which by that time I felt like I proved myself at the club, and they agreed that I could help more, and they moved me into a new role. And I did that for about another 18 months before moving to the Canadian Premier League, where I am now.
Okay, about your job in the Canadian Premier League, I'm aware that it's a recent project. The Premier League was created, I think it's the first season that you have the competition. I want to know, Oliver, about your current role as a head of performance and player recruitment. What do you do on a day-to-day basis, Oliver?
Yep, so I have two main aspects of my role, really. Maybe three, but mostly two. First of all, I have to work with the clubs on their match analysis processes. So I work with each one of the coaching staff on benchmarking performances, video analysis, using data from Opta and Instat and other companies to help the day-to-day coaching of their team. So whether it's evaluating player performances or looking at trends in their performances and where their team can improve. So that's one side of it. And then the other side is player recruitment. So on almost like an ongoing basis, teams are always looking for new players. And it's my job to work with each one of the 7 teams all at the same time and help them to find new players to bring into the league.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, because you are a scout working for 7 clubs at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very difficult. So I have to be very balanced in what I do. So sometimes we can get offered, or I find a very interesting player, and he'd be good for all 7 teams. And it's difficult not to call one team and say, this guy's perfect for you, without leaving out the others. But a huge aspect of my role is staying impartial. And I have to make sure that if I'm going to present a player, or if I find a player, then every club has an equal opportunity to gain access to that player. So a way I look at it is I'm just an extension of the scouting department for each team. So I have to be impartial, and hopefully in doing my job, I can help them bring players into the league that they wouldn't find on their own. And then it's up to the teams to decide how them players are going to fit into their system and whether or not he would be a good fit for their club.
Yeah, and it's a good way to keep the competition balanced, because if the support is common to all the teams, for instance, here in Portugal, the smaller teams, they don't have good scouting. It's difficult to find good players for that teams, but being the scouting department common to all of those teams, I imagine that can contribute to the equilibrium of the competition, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned it before. We have almost seven brand new clubs. So a lot of the clubs in Europe, for example, they've been around for 100 years, 90 years, whatever it is, a long, long time. And they have huge scouting departments, they have scouting networks, they have full-time analysts, they have everything you could need. Whereas our clubs are all brand new. So very often the coaching staff are the scouts, and it's very rare that one of our clubs has got a full-time scout somewhere. So while they can't really afford at the moment, or it doesn't make sense for them to bring in a whole scouting department, we see it as if the league hires me and I have a department which helps scout, we can achieve more as a collective than we could do as 7 individuals.
Okay, so now regarding your project, CoachTech, why did you decide to create it, and what is the main purpose of this project that you just created, Oliver?
Yeah, so I launched CoachTech around May last year, so it's been going for almost a year and a half. And at the time, I had a lot of people reaching out to me that wanted to get into analysis and wanted to get into scouting.
Okay.
Loads of people, especially in North America, that said there was very little out there in terms of coach education in this area. And ironically, one of the things I found when I was launching CoachTech was the Soccer Hub site, which has got some great courses, which is why I decided it would be a good thing to come on, obviously, and do the interview. But I thought that I could build a very kind of in-depth, specific course in scouting and in performance analysis, and use some of my experiences and use some of the contacts I have in the game to offer an insight that I don't think there is anything out there really in North America, and definitely not in person. So I think the strength of online courses is that obviously the price means that you don't have to travel and stay in a hotel and do all these types of things. So I just thought it was a really good way of providing something to people that there was clearly a need for. And instead of saying, what I did a lot was people were asking me how to get into the industry and what they should do. And I was spending an hour on Skype or on the phone with people trying to give them advice, which was great. But it was also very time consuming when you're in a 50 or 60 hour week working in MLS. And I found that I was getting more requests for help than I could really manage. So I thought, why don't I try and turn this into a little bit of a business and try and help some people along the way.
So I have some inside information that you will be having online course with Soccer Hub. Is that true? What is the course about? What kind of benefits can the students take out of that course, Oliver?
Yeah, you're correct. So shortly there is going to be a course coming out on Soccer Hub. I decided to help out and build a course looking at playing philosophies and how coaches can build one and measure one for themselves. So one thing I think I've learned in my time in football is how important it is to have a clearly defined playing philosophy as a coach or as a club, and how having one can really benefit you in the long term. And again, you see an awful lot of articles out there at the moment from some good websites with interviews with sporting directors and people like that show how they operate or how they're in charge of the long-term future of the club. But I didn't see much out there from people showing how you could do this yourself. So I decided to build a course in doing that with some insights into my experiences in the game. And it teaches you from stage one of why should I even have one, all the way through to stage 5 or 6 or whatever it is of I've now built a playing philosophy and I'm going to measure it for myself. So it's almost like a walkthrough guide of building a philosophy for yourself and measuring it, and then using that information to help coach you.
It looks like something happened with my camera, but now it's okay. I have usually people ask me a lot how they can become a soccer coach. I deliver an online course about this subject. And one of the things that I said in that course, that if you want to become a soccer coach nowadays, you should find a specific niche, something that you are good doing it, and that could be a way for you to get into coaching. Do you believe that being a scout or an analyst could be a door to get into the coaching area, Oliver?
Yes, definitely. So ironically, if you go back to my time when I was a student in England, I was actually taking a degree at Leeds Metropolitan University in sports coaching. And after 2 years, I actually dropped out and switched to marketing because I didn't believe that I was going to become a professional soccer coach. I saw lots of jobs going to former players and people like that who had no experience in the industry. And I thought that I'm not a former player, I wasn't a pro, I've got no chance of making it as a coach. So I decided to take a degree in business. And then if you fast forward 15 years or so, I'm now working in professional soccer. But yes, I've got many friends and many people in the industry who are now working as scouts or analysts who used, doing online courses or used being an analyst or a scout as a way of getting into the sort of conversations and the sort of clubs that you might not be able to get to by being a regular coach.
So is your goal also to become a coach, or are you happy?
No, I don't think I'm going to be a coach. It's not for me. And I think if for a very strange reason I got put in a coaching job one day, I would need a very detail-oriented and very traditional coach next to me that would take all the sessions, and I would just kind of be the guy that watches from a distance and makes small changes. I'm very much a strategic thinker, and I like thinking about the long-term vision of clubs and strategies. I don't think I'm much suited to being on the training ground and blowing the whistle and doing all those types of things.
Yeah, I think the next question has to be, how can this knowledge about soccer analysis can help you when you are a coach? For instance, my question is, do you believe that someone that has a deep knowledge about soccer analysis could be a better coach?
Yes, definitely. I would consider it the same as having a degree in psychology or knowing an awful lot about strength and conditioning or sports science. I think the more you know of an aspect of the game that can help you relate to your players and staff is going to help. So for one example, a lot of work in football data analysis has been done on crossing, and we're now starting to discover that crossing might not be the most efficient way of creating goals. So as a coach, and I've done this in the past, I've gone and seen my head coach and had this discussion with them and showed them the evidence. You can talk about certain situations in the game where the team is crossing the ball and maybe we shouldn't be crossing. And then even if you are going to cross, can we move the ball into a slightly different area before we cross because it's a more efficient way of creating chances? That's just one example, but I believe having that base knowledge in this can really help you as a coach to, live stop the training session, talk about why we do certain things in certain areas, give them evidence behind it, and then talk about different options.
Do you still find some coaches that don't understand what is the purpose of analyzing the match and recording the match? Do you still find coaches like that, Oliver?
Yes, definitely. I've had a couple in my time. I think it's a case of doing whatever you can to try and work with them. So one thing I've learned definitely as an analyst at a club is if you and the head coach disagree, he's still the guy that's going to win that argument. So you have to try and find a way to work with them. And even if you can't change everything they do, just chip away at making small differences as much as you can. But luckily, I think of it, I mentioned it before, just like sports science or fitness or anything else, the good coaches are willing to accept information from other experts. And I think the best coaches are the ones that use all the different areas of their club very well. So if you've got a coach who understands fitness and strength and conditioning might be important, but doesn't really listen to the coaches, he's only going to get his team to go so far in this area. And the same with psychology, and the same with data analysis. The best coaches are the ones that let the experts do their thing and then use all that information to make the best decisions for the club. And luckily now, I think you're seeing the modern coaches, they all understand this, and the old-fashioned coaches who don't use this information as well are the ones that don't pick up the results and eventually aren't in jobs anymore.
I have the same opinion as you. I have the opportunity to talk with many coaches, and I found some that still don't understand really why shouldn't be the coach to do everything, to analyze the matches, to do the scouting of the players, to do the mental coaching of the players. And of course, I see the most involved one always finding that, okay, I need someone to help me with this because this is too much. And I feel that evolution nowadays, for sure. I have here a question of Philip Tells. Philip Tells it's from Canada. So how do you see the scouting for national team youth in Canada being made just at MLS academies? Is Canada not using all the best players because not all of the best players play at MLS academies?
So one caveat to my answer is that I'm still quite new to Canada. I've been here less than a year, so I'm still trying to understand the environment. I think in Canada and the US, you have huge difficulties because of the size of the country. So First of all, you definitely have concerns over the level of competition for everybody. So if you are an academy player at Montreal Impact, for example, within 200 miles, there might only be 3 or 4 teams maximum who can really give you a good game. So it's very difficult for the national team coaches to evaluate talent on a regular basis. And even when they do play against MLS academies in the USSDA, it's not always an apples to apples comparison. So compared to Europe and smaller countries in South America and Central America, we're already at a huge disadvantage there. And as it pertains to the youth scouting network, as it gets built out throughout Canada, it's not really my job to build that at the moment. I don't know the best way to do it. I've had so much time concentrating on helping build the Canadian Premier League. I don't really have time to focus on the scouting network yet. I would love the opportunity to do so in the future, and if they would like, my opinion or my advice on it, I'd be happy to give it. But I imagine there's people at Canada Soccer who are just as capable, who are already working on that.
Sure. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Philippe, for the question. Let's talk a bit about the role as a soccer coach or a soccer analyst in Canada. Do you believe that it's rewarding enough to work as a scout or analyst or a coach in Canada at the moment, Oliver?
Yes, we already have one of our clubs in the Premier League with a full-time analyst. Part of my role here at the Canadian Premier League is to help all of our clubs eventually hire an analyst, and when they do, I will be working with all of them at the same time, helping them with their processes. Just like I'm helping the clubs now, I imagine it will be that I step away from speaking with the head coaches as much, and I speak with the analysts and help them. And I will help put on education seminars, introduce them to technologies, things like that. And again, a major part of me coming on board was to help build capacity within Canada for analysts. So absolutely, I think it's beneficial. And I think in maybe even this time next year, there'll be 4 or 5 more professional analysts in Canada. And in 5 years, I hope every club has 2 or 3, just like in clubs in Europe.
Okay, perfect. So do you believe that it's going to grow these kind of opportunities in Canada in the future, right?
Yeah, I mean, almost every professional club in the world has a video analyst now, or a performance analyst, or a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, sure.
We're no different, right? We have 7 clubs who at the moment have probably a little bit of a thinner staff than we would like, because they're all brand new clubs. It's very difficult to bring on a full deck of coaches and fitness specialists and everything that goes with being a professional team. It's almost impossible to do that in year 1. So I think every club is a little bit thinner on the ground right now than we would like them to be. And it's nobody's fault. It's just a circumstance of where we're at as a league. And this time next year, I think there'll be infrastructure throughout all the clubs that's, maybe even doubled in capacity. And then we're going to grow. At the moment, we're a 7-team league. I find it very hard to see a situation where we're not at 10 or top 12 clubs in 5 years' time. So that's another 5 teams again as well. So almost double the size.
Okay. Before we finish, we have here another question from Alex Andros. It's a long question. What basic steps should young players who are entering the prime age to join the CPL do in order to be noticed by CPL clubs and individuals like yourself? Would you recommend any of the following or more? Highlight videos sent to you, coaches, etc. Showcase the second. Okay, let's focus on this first question, and I believe then we can go to the second question.
Yeah. So in terms of domestic player pathway, we have 2 main avenues at the moment, maybe 3, but mostly two avenues to get into CPL. We have the U Sports program, where they could go to university and play. And then we have League One Ontario and what will become League One throughout the country. So this year we had a League One Ontario showcase where we had the best players, in our opinion, that were playing in League One Ontario that weren't signed by the CPL. They played in a showcase game, and a couple of players from there got signed. And then we had the U Sports draft, where the top players in the U Sports program were available to be drafted by the CPL clubs. This year, again, we're having another combine in Montreal, and we have the U Sports draft in Montreal. So these are probably going to be the two main avenues moving forward for young Canadian players to be noticed. So my advice, if you're 15, 16, 17 years old and you want to be spotted by a Canadian Premier League club, I would advise playing in League One Ontario or playing in other League Ones around the country if we eventually get them off the ground and we get them launched, or going to U Sports and playing in a U Sports program.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Alex. The last question of Alex is a bit like the one that I have prepared. Is like, what kind of steps should an expired analyst take in Canada to eventually put themselves into become an analyst as a full career?
Yeah, so it's obviously very much linked to what we're talking about today. The first thing is education. Find a way to educate yourself in analysis, whether that's taking courses, reading very good blogs. There's loads of them online that are very good now. Find a way to get some education. Find a mentor if you can. Find someone who's working as an analyst and see if you can bounce ideas off them. And number two would be find a way to showcase your work. So it's going to be very difficult for you to be hired as an analyst if you've got a couple of coaching badges or you've done some qualifications, but you've never worked as at a club. I don't think a professional club would ever take you on having no experience at all working with somebody, and I don't think they should. So it doesn't matter if it's your local youth team or you're doing scouting reports online or whatever it is. You need to find a way to gain experience in the industry and start working with a club. Now and this is one of the things that you will see on the CoachTech courses and the Soccer Hub courses, is that this can be done at a smaller level to the professionals, even with a pen and a piece of paper. It's all about knowing what you want to analyze and how you're going to do that. So you can work for your local youth team that have no software and nothing fancy, or you can work for Barcelona. But the principles are the same, which is find out how to help a coach, how to analyze games, and how to provide him with information that he can make better decisions. So my advice would be get some education and then find a way to implement that education and gain some experience in the industry.
Alex, I can give you two examples of people that I know of. That one of them worked in Manchester City, the other one worked in Zenit St. Petersburg in China. Well, one of them started, of course, he had some previous education, of course. He started publishing some videos on the internet, in his Twitter account and LinkedIn. I would say that this happened about 10 years ago. Now it's common to see those kinds of analysis in the internet, but 10 years ago you wouldn't find almost anything about it. So he found a way to showcase his job, his work, and he got a job first in Qatar, in the Aspire Academy in Qatar, and then he went to Manchester City. Another example is a guy that when he presented this master thesis, he invited André Villas-Boas to be on the audience, and he liked so much his presentation that he took him right away to work with him. So it's not enough for you to have the education. It's not enough for you to do a good job. People has to know that you are doing a good job, Yeah. And you have to find ways to promote yourself also.
And just to piggyback on that, Alex, fairly soon we're going to have a project coming out at the Canadian Premier League level where it's going to give Canadians a chance to showcase their ability to analyze games and do things in the Canadian Premier League. So I would keep your eyes out for that in the next couple of weeks, maybe even a month. But there's going to be a very good opportunity for anybody in Canada to try and showcase themselves and start working in this area and show their work.
Oliver, my last question: what are your plans for the future? How do you imagine yourself in 10 years?
Truly, I'm just trying to get my life built in Canada still. I've only been here a year, and I have a wife, and it's not as simple as saying I want to be here or there. But I'm not sure. I think the opportunity to work for a club again is something I want to do in the future. I just don't know how far along. So whether that's head of recruitment again, or a scouting role, or maybe even like an assistant general manager or a sporting director somewhere would be an unbelievable opportunity. But I'm definitely not looking to leave anytime soon and do that straight away. It has to be the right opportunity, and at 32 years old, I would be very young to be in that role still. And if you do it once and don't get it right, maybe you don't get the chance to do it again. So I definitely wouldn't be jumping at the first opportunity that came along. It would be waiting for the best possible one. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't. I want to be a coach. Very happy so far with working at the league level. It's very fun to talk strategy for the league rather than for an individual club, and it's something I'm really enjoying, and it's a new aspect of the football industry that I'm experiencing. So just trying to
one step at a time, Oliver, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I don't have there's no 5-year plan for me right now. I'm just trying to do a good job for our 7 clubs in the league and see where it goes.
Okay, Oliver, thank you very much for being with us. I would like to thank our audience also. Just keep notice that soon, I imagine that in 3 or 4 days, will we be having the course of Oliver Gage pre-launch on the Soccer Hub platform, so you can take a look and take notice what will be the course about. Once again, Oliver, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your time. I hope that we keep on talking about these subjects, both here in Europe or in Canada. And best of luck to you, Oliver. Thanks.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you.
See you guys.